Hi, I think it's working this time. I am Yael, Y-A-E-L, Yael, and I am going to speak to you today about the neurodiversity affirming paradigm. I'm actually not sure if you've even heard the words before, so they'll come up in a minute on a slide. I am going to speak to slides because if I don't have slides there, my wildly associative ADHD brain is just going to go off on tangents all over the place, and goodness knows where we'll end up or how long this will take. So I will have slides. So yes, I'm an ADHD and I am autistic, and I say that specifically because part of the neurodiversity affirming paradigm's foundational premise is nothing about us without us. So if you're learning about autism or ADHD, dyspraxia, dyslexia, dyscalculia, can never say it, learn it from people who live it, okay? Learn it from the people with lived experience. One, it's more interesting. So I watched the video with Jill's daughter and her friend, and that was really interesting. It was lovely to listen to that lived experience. You're going to get a particular flavor of expertise, the actual inside scoop, as opposed to a researcher from the outside who may not be seeing what they think they're seeing, may not be measuring what they think they're measuring. And we're finding more and more of that. Oh, I'm about to go off on a tangent again. Get to those slides. Okay, I'm getting to those slides. Where are we? Here we are. Okay, phew, slides, you're saved. Now I'll move myself this, and I will put the slides on full. Come on, slideshow. From the beginning. Yes. Okay, so there's my pretty logo made by my ADHD daughter, or my daughters are ADHD, but anyway, one of them. And you can kind of see it was done by an ADHD because she never finished it. I keep asking her, you won't even see the bits that aren't finished, but I can. I keep asking her to do it, but the thrill of creating something new is gone. And now it's like, yeah, go ask your designer to do it. So I will eventually. Another thing of ADHD, this is kind of good enough, and I might get to it or not. There's those words, neurodiversity and affirming. Neuro, most people like a neurologist, a neuropsychologist, so there's more, you think of the brain. And so it can mean diversity of brains, that's sort of how it's being used here, but really the word neuro is neurons are nerves, a neuron, sorry, and then there's the nervous system, the neuronal system, the neural, that's what I want, system, they're nerves. So the whole nervous system is also different. So when we're talking about the neurodiversity framework, we're talking about neurodiversity meaning different styles of brains. There are many different styles of brain, not only one. There is a majority style that has predominated, is that a word? Anyway, been predominant in the past couple of centuries, 200 years, industrial revolution-ish type times. But that's not the only brain type. It's more suited to office work. It's more suited to business hours. And so, of course, right now it's being dominant. And that's the neurotypical brain. So it's typical because it's the one we see the most of. Having said that, it's just because it's the one we've understood the most because it's been suited to this environment. I'm going on a tangent. Okay, affirming. Affirming means that, oh, I think this is actually going to be in the next slide. So we'll get to it. It'll be a review. Affirming means that it's not just positive and nice. It doesn't mean going, oh, aren't autistic people nice? Of course we are. But no, that's not what it means. And it doesn't even only mean strength-based. It just means saying all brain types, all nervous system types, they all have a reason for existing, a function, a purpose, an adaptation and adaptiveness to them. I'm jumping, I'll come to that with a slide. I'm supposed to introduce myself here, not talk about the actual title. Okay, introducing myself, Yael Clark, developmental psychologist. I've always worked in anxiety and OCD spectrum disorders, more and more over the past, I don't know, I trained in autism field 20 plus years ago, but it's only in the past, I didn't like the way that I was trained, I didn't enjoy that work, so I kind of left it behind and did anxiety and OCD. And surprise, surprise, nearly all my clients are autistic. It turns out I am too, and that's why they were, because we just clicked. But so more and more over the years, it's gone back to autism, but in a very different way than in the way I was trained, because I learned the neurodiversity affirming framework. I hope you're following me. I'm not jumping all over the place. I get way too excited. Okay. Yeah, see, I do tell you the words properly. Oh, that's a bright screen. And wait. What is from the screen? What is the neurodiversity affirming movement? Okay, so now I've used the word movement instead of framework. Okay, so as a movement, it is a social justice movement. And down the bottom, I've got that point, to address the long misunderstood and unmet needs of people whose brain style differs from the majority brain style. You may wonder why autistic people need a social justice movement. That would be a whole other lecture and a very long one. But there's been absolute discrimination and absolute refusal to listen to the adult autistics now who are saying, looking back on their childhood, that the style of therapy that was done for them, ABA it's called, was harmful. So yes, it's a social justice movement. It's also, now I'm talking about only autistics, it's also a social justice movement in terms of let's accept all brains and all nervous system styles. But it's a clinical practice framework, so the social justice movement informs your clinical practice, the way that you will be with a client. Because once you've got these understandings, it will change the way you work for the better. It's not going to be a clinical practice framework like someone who learns cognitive behavioral therapy and they learn from a book steps to follow, exercises to do. It's much more philosophical than that. It's much more of an approach, not do this, do this, do this, okay? Because people aren't that neat and tidy. Okay, so the neurodiversity affirming movement understands that variation occurs naturally in all ecosystems. Diversity ensures survival. It's what helps all species to adapt, to survive. So I don't know if you ever learned in Year 10 biology, I remember learning about the peppered moth. I did find out a couple of weeks ago, much to my disappointment and disillusionment, that these moths were actually pinned to the tree by the researcher or the photographer. They didn't actually just land there. But yeah, you can see that the black one down the bottom, you can't be seen. And the white one obviously stands out. So the black one is more adaptive to its environment. So you would hypothesize that in the coming years, he would be, or she, would be the main population there. And these ones would have died out. And this photo was taken just after the Industrial Revolution, when what was clean air all became black from the factories. So the white ones died out. Again, there's problems with that actual research that was done. We'll go to it. I'd love to. But hopefully that shows you how by having two different colors in their species, the species survived even though the environment changed. So we're saying the same thing about having different brain styles, that our human species, the Homo sapiens, will survive because we have different brain styles. And you can really see that now in the pandemic. I mean, who do you think built the internet? Autistics. We would not have been adapted for the times that we have without the autistic brain. Oh, okay, so I already said this, told you I'd jump. Not a magic formula for counselling. It's the vibe. So I don't know if you've all seen The Castle, but if you haven't, you got to go see it. Distinctly Aussie humour. But in The Castle, this man, Dale Kerrigan, should I explain this or not? I've got no idea what you know and don't know because I don't know you. Dale Kerrigan's fighting at the Supreme Court level. This is a QC who charitably decided to help him. This is a little country lawyer who's got no idea what's going on. But he's tried to explain why it's unconstitutional, and he doesn't know the law well enough and he can't argue it well enough. So he just says, it's just the vibe. It's just wrong. And that's what I want you guys to get from today, really. It's a vibe. It is such a non-scientific word, but it's an attitude, it's an approach. And if you take this understanding into everything you read, everything you write, everything you talk about and do for clients, with clients, about clients, as you're learning to work with clients, it will come from there, okay? It's the vibe. Here's a little checklist, which I made recently. Jill, you will have seen this. Is your work or the work you're recommending truly neurodiversity affirming? And I put this in a group that I run just for people to check before they posted any research or recommendations. They should check that it really fits within what the group's about. And by giving you this checklist, I'm also showing you what it means to be neurodiversity affirming. So the neurodivergent people should be the majority stakeholders, meaning if there's research, they should be the majority of the researchers on the team. If there's writing about it, they should have been the author or at least one of the co-authors. They should be speaking at a conference if you're going to a conference on neurodiversity or autism or ADHD, etc. They should be speakers there. They should be presenters, okay? And remember, lived experience. At the very least, the work has to be informed by neurodivergent researchers, writers, speakers, presenters. We need and value neurotypical allies. Of course we do. We've got to all work together. Besides which, I couldn't organize myself out of a paper bag, so I need someone with really good organization skills to help me. So we need to be a team. We need to be a team. But anyone who is not neurodivergent, I don't think I actually defined that word. Well, if neurotypical is the neurology of most people, to diverge from that and have a different brain style is the neurodivergent. Okay, so I'm neurodivergent. The population has neurodiversity, but a person, you say neurodivergent. So we need to have neurotypical allies, but any ally, any neurotypical person who is speaking about, writing about, researching about, etc., neurodivergent people needs to be quoting neurodivergent people, have read their papers, read their research, watch their videos, TED Talks, whatever, quote them. Bring your evidence, bring your work from people with lived experience. Neurotypical input is from the position of ally, I just said that, and does not speak over lived experience. So aiming to understand the needs of neurodivergent people from their perspective. And this is going to be controversial what I'm about to say, but not even from the neurotypical parent's perspective. The neurotypical parent is an ally to their child, one hopes, and an advocate for their child. But if their child is saying, I experience the world in ABC way, and the parent says, oh, no, it's XYZ, no, we listen to the person who is actually living it. That's a big point. You might need to unpack it later. But I'll say it, I've just left it there. Aims to adapt the environment to meet neurodivergent expressed needs. We don't need to change the neurodivergent person. Their brain's just fine. It's the environment that isn't accommodating them. Okay, so I often say to my clients that in my therapy room, in my consulting room, I am highly able. I'm bloody good at this. But if you see me trying to organize something at home, get something finished, do some administrative tasks, get invoices out, get bills paid, ooh, no, okay, yeah, no, not good. Now you can see where I'm having trouble. Okay, so it depends on the environment. So if we can change that environment, which basically means getting my husband to do it all, then that helps. But I mean, more seriously, it would be things like, it would be things like going into my consulting room and I would say to someone, is the light okay for you? I particularly like to have a diffuser with lavender and sandalwood oil, but I know that I don't know what everybody else likes it. So I need to ask, is this okay for you? Because neurodivergent people are generally very, very sensitive to smell, light, sound, and you really need to be asking, is this environment going to is it comfortable for you? Aims to understand and respect neurodivergent communication styles. So one of them, which you've been seeing quite clearly, is ADHD, woo, off with the next association and the next thought that popped up. But you'll also get the fact that we can speak really directly and not put all the fluffy, nice social things around it. The number of times that I'll write an email and then I have to go back and put, oh yeah, I forgot the dear blah blah, how are you, hope you're well, and then at the end, you know, have a great weekend. No, here's an email, I'm just going to get to the point and tell you what it is because I'm just so excited and I'm just so into it. Okay, now I could send that off and somebody who doesn't speak like me, who is neurotypical, might be, oh, she's so rude. So I really do try to remember. But by the same token, it would be really lovely if they knew that, no, I'm not being rude. It's just the way I talk and it's okay. We can all have different styles. I've said this aims to develop therapies that support neurodivergent people instead of trying to make them more normal. Good luck with that. But unfortunately, that's exactly what therapy's been. Try and make people more normal. Why don't you learn how to make eye contact? Why don't you learn how to say hello nicely? Why don't you learn how to sit really still? Okay, no, that is not what supporting a neurodivergent person can be about. That just causes stress and meltdown and shutdown, anxiety. That's where the mental health disorders come from in autistic and ADHD people, being forced to be something they're not. Supports neurodivergent people at the sensory somatic level. I said that. Okay, you will know that a work is affirming, neurodiversity affirming, if it takes into account that we don't only use words and thought processes, we also approach the world through our senses and our bodies. Everyone does, all people, but neurodivergent people are particularly sensitive. Uses a neurotype. I'll go into this in the next diagram, that's a bit complicated there. Strengths-based, not deficits focused. So if someone's saying you have a disorder, that is not neurodiversity affirming. I know it's called that. ADHD is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Terrible name. It's not even true. It's a stupid name and it will change, but it hasn't yet. ASD, autism spectrum disorder. Terrible name. A lot of people are calling it ASC, autism spectrum condition. A little bit better. I just call it autistic brain style. So it's not deficits. We're not focusing on the fault, the deficit. We're not focusing on problems and disorders because they're not in the person. Okay, the person's fine. It's the environment that isn't fitting the person. Yeah, okay. So this is the point that I missed because I knew I did remember ahead that I have a diagram on it. So I say I'm autistic. I don't say I'm on the spectrum. First of all, that's just such a euphemism. That is trying to avoid saying something as if saying autistic is just the worst thing in the world. Oh, I'm on the spectrum. Call it what it is. It's fine. It's not a problem. Suffers from autism? I'm not suffering. No, I'm not. Okay, I'll leave it at that. On the spectrum, okay, again, I'm not on it because A, I find that really a silly euphemism and avoiding, but B, also, I'm not on it because it is me, as the last picture, you'll see it in a minute. So then other people say a person with autism. No, I'm not carrying it around like a handbag. It's not an accessory, as it says down there. Okay, I can't put it down and walk away from it. It can't be taken away from me. It's just who I am. So autistic person. Now ADHD grammatically is a tricky one, but we say ADHDer, and soon enough it'll change. I'll be able to say it. I was going to distract myself. Okay, so looking at the strengths, not the deficits. When you get these slides and you have this YouTube video, you got to look it up. It's so good. I could just sing it and play it every single day. I love it. I love it. I don't know if you've ever, a lot of you some of you might have followed him on YouTube. He's fantastic. Yes, he's an ADHD, but what he does is not always about ADHD, just a couple of them are. He's brilliant. So ableism is when we judge something by originally able-bodied. standard, but it just means that we're, let's say, judging an autistic person by a non-autistic person's standard. And I certainly have a lot of ableism within me that I don't even realize, because I was raised with it, because I was conditioned with it. So sometimes I'm really angry at myself. Why can't I just blah, blah, blah? And that's what we call internalized ableism, judging myself by a non-autistic standard or a non-ADHD standard. And that's where my anxiety would come from. And that is where my low self-esteem, oh my gosh, I'm much better now, a lot more self-compassion now, but I used to be really, really super hard on myself. Still am. Social model of disability. We might be getting into too much detail now, but again, it goes back to the idea of the disability is not within me, it's within the society that I'm trying to fit into. It's very hard to fit into this society with the me who I am. So you can look up these terms. I won't go into them. Co-occurring conditions. A lot of what people think is autism are actually just conditions that often occur with autism. So, for example, intellectual disability. Many people think that autistic people are either intellectually disabled or brilliant, like Rain Man brilliant. No, most of us are just in between, like everybody else in the population. But there are conditions that co-occur. I have mast cell activation syndrome. You can look it up if you're interested. EDS, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, is also very common in autistic people. And they're just because we have a really super sensitive nervous system. But anyway, you'll see that they're co-occurring conditions, and there are plenty of autistic people without them. Alexithymia, not having emotional language to just explain or express your emotions, is also quite common. It's very common in autism, but then again, there are still plenty of autistic people like myself who don't, or are not alexithymic. We certainly can talk nonstop about our emotional world. We don't treat autism or ADHD. Hopefully I've said that already, or you've got that vibe, the vibe already. Okay, we don't treat them directly. We're not trying to change autism or cure it or fix it, or ADHD. Okay, we might treat an autistic or ADHD person's depression or anxiety, a mental health, a mood disorder. We might treat that, but we don't treat the actual. How can you treat someone's brain style? Anyway, yeah, you don't. And here are some people to follow on social media or wherever, websites, who are neurodivergent and will give you that lived experience expertise. Christy Forbes, she is Australian, Melbourne actually, and she, oh, you're not Melbourne, you're West Australia. I'm Melbourne. We haven't seen each other for a very long time, have we? Christy's Melbourne, and she is autistic, ADHD, and PDA, which is a very common part of, but not much known about it, of autism. And it stands for persistent drive for autonomy. It's also got other names that are more pathologizing, but I'm going with this one, which is more affirming. And she's really, really interesting to listen to. You'll learn a lot. Harry Thompson is from the UK, and he calls himself the naughty Autie. So he's autistic and he's a cutie. He's a real cutie. He's a PDA like Christy, and persistent drive for autonomy people tend to, they avoid any demands. If you put pressure on him, he'll just disappear for a while. He's entertaining and really interesting to listen to. Chloe Hayden is also from Melbourne. Oh, there's a theme here. Maybe the theme is that I'm from here, so that's why I know the people here. I don't know. Chloe is from Melbourne, or Geelong, near Melbourne. And you could follow her anywhere. She's all over TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, probably Facebook, but I've never checked. So she's fantastic. She used to call herself Princess Aspian. Now she's just Chloe Hayden. Jessica McCabe is American, and she has a YouTube channel called How to ADHD, and that is probably one of your very best sources of information for ADHD. She's fantastic. and she makes sure that what she shares is corroborated by other professionals and lived experience. Christina Keeble, I think she's originally American, but she lives here in Melbourne now, and she just travelled around Australia doing a lot of conferences. Christina and Rebecca Perkins actually with her. They have an organisation called My Special Child and the Peak Centre, P-E-A-K, I think, yeah. But whatever, you can Google their names. These are good people to follow. I didn't put Yen up there. They would be good to follow too. Yen Perkis, Y-E-N-N, the rest you'll find, is a non-binary autistic person with a diagnosis of schizophrenia, has written many books, really good books, like they're really useful in counselling neurodivergent people because they explain the neurodivergent experience really well. And yeah, I'm sure there's plenty more people. Sometimes, you know, going to social media, you go to those people and it will lead you to others, and it will be others who are generally affirming because they're connected. So I have no idea how long this went for, because having the slides large like I do means I can't see the clock. I hope I haven't gone too long. I hope I've been clear enough, because I know that I blab a lot and go in circles. But worst comes to worst, you can go back over the slides and Jill can explain them to you. Okay, be well, everybody. Bye-bye.